Hi, I'm Glenn Whipp with the Los Angeles Times. Joining us today, the creator and star of the Netflix comedy Love, Paul Rust. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
So, you created a series, co-create, with your wife, Leslie Arfin, called Love. You must be the guy that people come to when they need relationship advice then, right?
Yeah. Clearly, you can tell by watching the show that
You have plenty of good...
lots of healthy
Yes.
relationship stuff going on. I'm clearly the guy you would come to for advice. No,
Are you at all that guy with your friends?
yeah, it's interesting because I think like most of the time when you're a friend giving advice, it's mainly just a lot of holding your tongue, right?
Right. You're listening.
Yeah.
You're the shoulder.
Yeah, and reserving judgment, I think,
Yeah.
is the big thing. You end up being your friend's analyst.
Right.
You're like, you have a couch that you bring out and they lay back on it and you sit behind it and take notes. And but it is funny, like just because of the nature of the show, it has been cool. Like since it's come out, people are very open about sharing their relationship experiences. Yeah, like
You're getting that like when you're out.
yeah, complete strangers being like, oh, I do that too. I got so obsessed with my husband when we were first dating, and I was like stalking him online, and for maybe other people that would be too much information, but I love it.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
Has it ever crossed over into a too much information scenario?
No, because I'd probably just start walking away.
Yeah. That's good that people are like obviously relating then to what the show, to scenes in the show and what the characters are going through.
Yeah, no, I recently I was I was at an ATM, and this kind of like bro-ish guy with like a ponytail and like had just obviously gotten done working out, like walked up to me and he fist bumped me and he was like, dude, thanks for the vulnerability, man. So it is nice. It's nice that it opens up people to be free. If the opposite was happening, which is like people felt like they had to puff their chest or something, that would be a huge bummer for me. So yeah, I'd rather have too much information than no information at all.
Right.
Yeah, and then I can take their ideas and put it on the show, right? And steal their lives.
It's like you run back to your car and open up the phone and make a little note.
Exactly. I'm just a succubus for people's emotional experiences. Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier, like listening to friends without judgment. I mean, that's kind of really big on how you present the characters in the show, without judgment.
Yeah.
Get to know them with all their flaws, accept them.
Yeah.
Because these are not necessarily, on the surface, likable people.
Right.
You know, in the traditional sense of a comedy likability, you know?
Yeah, and that's what, was we were really excited to have Gillian Jacobs acting on the show. I was a fan of hers before she had joined up with the show, and we genuinely wrote the part hoping we could get Gillian, and then this great thing happened where Community was ending and there was a spot for her to do our show, and we were so excited. But a lot of it had to do with when I watched her previous performances, the thing that I was always struck by was that she would play characters who were maybe a little damaged, but I could tell that there was no judgment by the actor on the character. And that felt like sort of key with the character of Mickey, but I think anybody who we cast, nobody, after they call cut goes, oh, this person, like everybody, you can tell that there's genuine affection for the character they're playing. And I think that just, grows out of, in the, when it starts in the writer's room, but also with Judd, most of, if not all of the stuff he makes, I think there's always, in a way that I appreciated before I ever worked with Judd, was just like a lack of judgment about the characters and just trying to approach people with kindness and affection, which is.
You're obviously not going to have any judgment with Gus yourself.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Well, I worry, we try to, the term we use in the writer's room all the time is scuffing up a character. Like, how can we make a character like a little more unlikable or complicated? And certainly for me, that was like, because I'm playing a character who is loosely based on me, I was like, oh, it'd be pretty gross if I spent 10 episodes as a commercial saying like, what a great guy.
Yes.
So as much as possible, we try to find ways that I do things that are unlikable.
I would say by the finale, you really succeeded.
Thank you.
Because
No,
in the
yeah.
finale, Gus is just like, oh
Yeah.
my God, just this epic
Yeah.
meltdown.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think it was because we didn't want it to be that, like, as much as possible with the show, we're constantly trying to make it seem or make it be like 50-50. And that and it's interesting the way people talk about the show later. You can tell, like, I feel like we did a fairly good job because people equally dislike and like each of the characters in given situations. And I think as much as possible, we needed to have me have a meltdown so that it wasn't just crazy
drama with
girl
Mickey.
with nice
Yeah,
guy
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
That's lame, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the season ends, and you're halfway through making season 2
Right.
now, which is going to be 12 episodes
Yeah.
instead of 10. So
Yes.
you're expanding a little bit.
Yeah.
You're halfway through. I mean, season 1 ends with you guys kind of a big kiss there
Right.
at United Oil, the
Yeah.
gas station where they met.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm kind of like not sure that I was happy about that.
Right.
Yeah,
so-
it's such a big romantic moment, but it seems wrong too.
Yeah, that was like the fun we had, like when we were coming up with that scene, was just like, oh, we could have it have all the trappings of a romantic ending, but if you thought about it a little longer, you'd be like, wait, I don't know if I want this. Seems unhealthy what they're doing. And you know, somebody said to me, oh, the show seems less will they, won't they, and more should they, shouldn't they? Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So I think that's like the fun that we're having writing the show and coming up with it, is as much as possible trying to find moments where that's true. Yeah.
I would say that season 1 airs more on the side of they shouldn't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So they break up in like the first episode of season 2, right?
You'll have to
going
wait and
with
see.
that?
Yeah. No, I think, you know, maybe that was sort of like wanting to have the challenge of stacking the deck against the couple as much as possible, so that we can have the challenge of showing what they're working through. And I mean, maybe it is just a feeling like in life when you watch a couple, there are so many red flags that are going up of like people going, don't do this. This is
Right.
a bad
Yeah,
choice.
everybody sees it but the couple.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because they're on some sort of high of just like, oh, it's so fun
Yeah.
getting obsessed with somebody, you know? Yeah.
And you wrote one episode, the date episode.
Right.
You wrote that with Judd Apatow.
Yep.
And you guys sat down, and the idea was basically you just listed every bad thing that's ever gone wrong on a date. Is
Yeah.
that- yeah.
Yeah, we literally made a list of every possible thing that could go wrong on a date, and then just like began narrowing them down more and more to our like top 10 greatest hits of awkwardness on a date.
Yeah.
And
Was a lot of this autobiographical with you guys?
yeah, I mean, the thing that for me feels like the most autobiographical or truthful to like my experience is in that episode when the person's getting cold because they're underneath a vent that's blasting air conditioning. And I certainly on a date have been over focused on, is this person comfortable or not? And then deciding for them that they are not comfortable, and I will help them, you know, which is death for a first date.
Right.
Is somebody being like, just give me the space to let me say I'm cold or I'm too hot or whatever. But and then moving tables. Actually, that reminds me, I went to a restaurant recently and I got sat at a table and I sat there and then I was like, you know what? I think I want to go over to that table, and the person seating me was like, just like your show. So, like,
Busted.
Yeah. So it goes both ways.
It's always kind of awkward when you're in a restaurant and they seat you at a table that's just not working for you, but then you look around and there's 3 or 4 other ones, and you make that little walk, you know.
I did. Yeah. I wonder if that's. I'm sure that's a universal experience, but I wonder if it gets even exacerbated more in Los Angeles, where people are constantly looking over at the other people and going like, why don't I have that?
Right.
I want
right,
that.
Right.
Yeah. They have, their table looks warmer.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sure that person at that table is looking over and going, why do I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of LA experiences,
Yeah.
maybe one particular to LA, but not necessarily the rest of the country. Going to a party and having a guy ask you to put a tattoo on him.
Yeah. Well, that came
Does that come from, where did that come from?
That came from my lovely wife, Leslie Arfin, who co-created the show with me, and Judd. She has tattoos, and she went and got a tattoo from, I'm blanking on his name. He's the guy who came up with the character designs for Bob's Burgers. And so she got a tattoo from him and was like, oh, cool, this guy who's an artist who she really likes is giving a tattoo. And then he was like, give me one. I guess that's something he likes to do, is get tattoos from other people, which for me is like, oh my God, I can't give up control in terms of like how I like my coffee. I can't imagine like having my body changed for eternity. But
by an amateur.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. Yeah, it's the idea of somebody with a needle.
Right. Exactly. Oh no, I can't. I would hate that. But Leslie had that happen to her, and then we were talking about it in the writers' room, and it was right around the time we were coming up with this idea of like a hipster party, which I'm really proud of the fact that we never utter the H word in the first season of the show entirely. Nobody ever says hipster, which I like. I feel like it's an overused word, but I'm using it right now. But yeah, when he gives a tattoo to a guy, this actor, well, he's a skateboarder, Jason Dill, and we cast him as this character, Len, who asked people to tattoo his body. So yeah, we just pulled it right from Leslie's experience. She didn't tattoo sarcoma on the guy. She, the person was happy with the tattoo she gave. You know, we had to find some source of comic conflict in the scene, but yeah.
At that party, you do a very good cover of Paul McCartney's song "Jet."
Yeah.
Did you hear back from the other Paul?
Well, somebody said to me, they were like, you know, at least somebody must have told him that we did that, right? And I was like, no. I didn't like to think of the idea that that we'd be on Paul McCartney's radar at all. But Judd is definitely on his radar, because around that time, Judd was doing stand-up at the Improv Comedy Club. And Paul McCartney was just dropping in to watch. I guess he's a big comedy fan. So
I heard this story, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think they were having their own conversations and stuff, and I think that is how we were able to get maybe a nice discount on the use of the song.
Right,
yeah.
Right, because it's probably like insanely expensive.
Right, usually Beatles don't come cheap. I don't
even
think.
if you're doing the covering of the song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, we did a cover of that song, and it was fun. I got to learn some Paul McCartney bass lines, which is very tough.
He's a great
bass.
Yeah. Do you religiously check out Yelp reviews of restaurants before you go to dine there?
I don't. I'm much more of the person who, what Birdie says, which is like, let's just go and write a good review just to boost up their self-esteem. Like that's, I can't conceive of me ever sitting down to write a bad review for a restaurant. I think partly because my dad's a small business owner, and so I have a great affection for the person who every day wakes up and is trying to make their business work. And so for me, I would feel like I was a saboteur if I was writing. But as far as reading reviews, no, I don't think I've ever read a Yelp review, which maybe I should. I've had some bad experiences. The thing I've experienced when I go to a restaurant that I haven't looked into is when you sit down and the menu is really light and the wait service doesn't even seem to care if you're there or not. And then there's like 3 guys in the back smoking cigars and playing cards, and you're like, oh, I'm in a mob front. I somehow like walked into some sort of front.
It's in a restaurant.
Yeah. That's why they don't care if I'm here or not. Yeah.
We had a couple of reader questions.
Sure.
Kelly on Twitter wondering how much of Love is improvised. Do you have some space in there to let the actors go?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we cast a bunch of people who are all really great and trained in improv, and so
your background as well.
Yeah, and we cast a lot of people who I've done improv with, just because it's nice being on a set where you're just like automatically have like the ease of having worked with somebody. So if there was like a percentage, I would say it's probably like 70% scripted, 30% improvised. But it's interesting, because as much as possible, we try to make the show feel, in terms of cinematography, have like some cinematic elements.
Right.
And so sometimes you have to like trade that off and go, oh, it'd look better if this played all out in one take in a master, and it wasn't choppy trying to get different improvised lines. So sometimes we just go, you know what, we scripted the scene, we thought a lot about it, let's just shoot the scripted version and not worry about improv, so that the trade-off can be that we have something that feels a little more cinematic. Yeah. So that's always the constant struggle when you're doing improv.
There was a question from Piltdown Man, which is like a paleontological reference.
okay.
I looked it up myself.
You don't want it to be like...
But you don't know. I'm not going to say it before I look it up. But any interesting stuff from season 1 that just couldn't make it into the show got left on the floor?
Oh.
Maybe you ended up incorporating it in season 2, right?
Yeah. There's always, I'm always... I'll think whenever we have to cut something, I'm always like, well, hopefully we can put it in the backlog. I mean, we shot a whole, as far as stuff that didn't get cut in the writer's room, but got just cut that we shot. We had a really great subplot in the 8th episode, where I have a party at my house that Mickey comes to, and it's at the Oakwood-like apartment complex.
Carlito's Way.
That's right, yeah. Birdie is trying to find me, and we had the fun of like those complexes are like their own little labyrinths, where you're just and because everything looks the same, you feel like you're turning the same corner over and over again. And we had a really fun story of Birdie trying to find her way just to get to the apartment, and she runs into Steve Banos and Dave Gruber Allen, who play Frank and Alan on the show, and they cross paths, and then they start guiding her, and then Gruber sprains his ankle. There was a whole thing, but what ended up happening was the party stuff ended up getting bigger and bigger and bigger when we were shooting it, and even though Netflix is very kind in letting us have like sliding run times where sometimes it could be 27 minutes or 35 or 42, like they give us.
But when it gets to an hour, they're
like timeout. Yeah, so maybe we'll be able to recycle that. If there's like a season 6 and we're running low, we'll slot that in, and they're like, their hair is different. Why did they?
But you're saying the party stuff was so good. Like, it's a party, you guys are all together, and the idea is to come up with songs for end credits of movies.
Right, yeah.
And the one that you guys do is Carlito's Way.
Yes.
I was a little disappointed. I read in an interview, you were very quick to disavow that kind of party from your own experience.
Oh,
it
yeah.
looked like a fun party.
It would be a fun party, and
But you were like, no, I would never do that.
Yeah, I'm real cool. No, I think I definitely do the two components of it. I get together with friends and we watch movies. Every Halloween we'll do a thing where we sit down and we'll certainly do nerdy stuff, Glenn, okay? So I'm not like trying to deny that. Like on Halloween, I'll have we'll do a movie marathon where we watch 7 scary movies in increasing levels of terror. So the first one will be like the Garfield Halloween special. It's like the lightest possible thing in the world. And then by the end, it's like Faces of Death. So you just like slowly grow up. So we've done that. And then I get together with friends and we'll play goofy music and stuff. So we melded those two together. But maybe I should do it. I'd love to hear if people do their own parties of that. That'd be amazing.
Inspiration.
Yeah.
So the other big thing you did this year with Netflix was the Pee-wee movie.
Oh yeah.
Which was crazy because I read where you dressed up as a young man.
Yeah.
I don't know how young or how old you were. You dressed up as
It's much like Pee-wee. How young, how old was I?
Doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah.
As he's eternal.
Yeah.
But that had to be crazy then, having that experience. It'd be like dressing up as Batman and then writing a DC,
Right.
comics movie.
Yeah.
But you're actually in the room. You're actually working with this
Yeah.
guy that you dressed up with. as-
Yeah. Well, and that's like one of those things where I wait like a full calendar year before I even bring up to Paul Rubens that I used to dress up as Pee Wee. That's like one of those things I'm like, I'm gonna wait. I don't want to freak him out like in our first writing session,
Yeah.
being like, I used to dress
And
like
you show
you.
him the picture. Like, look at this picture of me.
Yeah. Be
Isn't
like,
this
"Oh."
great?
He's like, I've misjudged the situation. I can't
Yeah.
write with this guy. He's creepy. But but I did show him. My mom sent me the red bow tie that she made for me, and I showed Paul, and he was, Paul's the sweetest man in the world, so he loved it. But yeah, that was like, I would say it was a dream come true. But I didn't even possibly think it was conceivable that I could have ever written something with Paul Rubin, write a Pee Wee thing with Paul Rubin. So it was just a really incredible experience. And yeah, I mean, being such a fan, and the thing that was cool about it was, there's a lot of remakes and reboots and things like that. The thing that I felt so blessed about was that I got to be working on it with the person who was the original creator of it. And so I could I never had to have too much of a question of like, is this right? Are we doing the right thing? Because I had the original guy sitting there, like, deigning it as
Yeah.
okay. So
And
that
it's
was
not a remake or a reboot. It's like a continuation,
yeah.
revisitation.
Yeah, and some people were a little confused because it's not a direct sequel to like Big Adventure. We just started from a new point, but that was always I always thought was really cool about the Pee Wee character was that he could kind of be in different worlds. It's a lot like old. Like the old two-reelers, like with the Three Stooges or something, that like one point they could be house painters, another time they own a restaurant.
You're not asking why.
Yeah, or Bugs Bunny, like he lives in a hole in the forest sometimes, and other times he's in medieval time. Like just the fun of kind of the, I guess, elasticity of a character, being able to put them in a different plot. Because so much of the stuff, like, I get exhausted just like people having to honor canon all the time, like in sci-fi stuff or whatever, fantasy stuff of like, well, they did this there, so how can they do that? I'm like, rules suck, man. They're so confining. So being able to kind of like be able to play in your own sandbox each time was really great,
So when will season 2 of Love drop on Netflix? Any plan?
I believe it'll be next year sometime early, like in the same way. I think the first season came out sort of in mid-February, hopefully around that time again, which it's funny because it comes around Valentine's Day, and so many people tell me that they watch it with their significant others, and I wonder, like, is this the best show to watch with? You're like, does it make people?
Maybe it makes them feel better about their
I
own
guess
relationship.
that could be
right?
it. Yeah, you're like, at least I'm not those people.
Yeah.
But I didn't know also if it's sort of like the when somebody does something on the show, and it's called out as wrong or weird. And then if it happens in their relationship, we're like, you do that too, you jerk. Yeah. You try to control me as well,
Maybe it's in some weird way helping people. Right?
Yeah. It's been nice. We've had, Gillian had the experience of a therapist coming up to her and saying, hey, thanks for doing the show. I actually think it's good. So that's nice. Not that the show should be a PSA or whatever. And then recently my wife and I, we were out shopping, and we was at Urban Outfitters, and a person who was working the register said that their therapist recommended to them to watch the show, which I wonder if it was just like to be like, yeah, you're not as bad as that. Yeah. Chin up. You could be a lot worse. Yeah.
Well, you're doing good.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in today.
Oh, thanks, Glenn. It was nice to be here. Nice chatting with you.
For more of these Emmy conversations, please go to latimes.com. Thank you for watching.